I never wanted to be a curator. So I got into curating by accident. I always wanted to be a writer. And I'm
Right.
very grateful that this happened, and I enjoy it. But yeah, I think that basically counts for everyone, right? Whatever you want to do and believe in, just do it and keep doing it.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So happy to have you here. You know, you're the first writer in the podcast.
Oh, that's great. I'm very honored. Thank you for the invitation.
No, my pleasure. And you know, Anika, you're a writer, but also you're a curator. You're also an artist, and you are building a gallery, which is a hybrid, right? Expanded.Art is both physical and digital, right? It's you have physical space where you are right now, right? That's the gallery itself.
Yes, I'm at the gallery in Berlin. I mean, we're a gallery and an online platform, basically like everyone else, but we have two physical gallery spaces on Friedrichstraße in Berlin, one of the biggest shopping streets in Berlin. So a lot of people come by.
Awesome. And at what time does it close? Because it's 9 p.m. Is it usually open at this time?
No, usually we close at 6, but I always stay a bit longer. And if someone wants to come in late, I guess everyone knows Ryan from NFT Collective. Him and his girlfriend came by, I guess, 3 weeks ago at 11:30 because they went to the Friedrichstraße. And yes, if I'm still here, then I open the door and people can see
Okay.
the exhibition.
So it's also like your office. Is it you also see it like an office space or purely gallery?
No, it's also, we're here and we opened on December 1st, and I've been here like every day, Monday to Saturday, since then, because I'm also very interested. Because as I've said, we're on one of the main shopping streets in Berlin, so a lot of people come in who don't know anything about the history of digital art, who don't know anything about NFTs, except that what they hear, they are dead. So I really want to know what people think about the exhibitions, how they respond to the work, if they prefer exhibitions with more screens or more physical work. So that's really important for me to get the feedback from people. And what's interesting to me is that artists would much rather just have one piece on a screen. But by now I know that people are much more likely to spend a lot more time in an exhibition if there's more pieces on a screen and they know, then they walk forth and back and go just spend more time in front of one screen.
Yeah, that's a good trick, but it also makes sense with these dynamic pieces, right? That they are changing, and yeah, you can with some pieces they are infinite, right? They keep running and running and running. So that's a good thing for the gallery. I never thought about that. It keeps them there for a longer time. That's interesting. And you know, Anika, I've been to a couple of let's call them panels or conferences where you are usually there as a moderator, right? And you're invited to many of these events to moderate conversations. So it's great to now have the chance to actually talk with you, and you're kind of on the other side, right? And learn a bit from your journey.
I'm always happy when I don't have to moderate and can just be in the audience. And now it's like now I even have to speak the whole time.
Right. Yeah, moderating isn't easy, right? You have to be prepared. You have to understand everything very well. It's different, like from this forum, which is an interview. But Anika, let's start from the beginning. How did you get involved in the art world? How did that happen?
I studied art history and German literature at the university in Heidelberg. I guess a lot of people know the city because of its castle. So a lot of tourists come there, travel there. It's a small university city with a beautiful castle. So that was really nice studying there. And then looking back at it today, I would say we were young and naive, and we had founded back then as a group of students history about a magazine about the history of art, and we thought it would be important that students get the chance to publish the pieces they write for the university, right? Then we first done a print magazine. Then a couple of years later, we turned it into a blog, and I kept doing that. In between, we were like 10 people. So we people. We've won prizes. We worked with the biggest newspapers in Germany, and so on and so on. So yeah, and I always wanted to be a writer. So I have I was like the editor-in-chief, and we had a CPO. So we were doing this, and to me, this sort of like feels like what I'm doing today with Expanded.Art, building something up with a group of people from the ground, and trying to learn and understand how to run everything and how to work together in a team. Then what I've been doing for a lot of years, working with artists. So yeah, that's how I got involved with also doing things online, right? Then we had to, because we wanted to interact with people, with readers, wanted to get the word out about the magazine. So I then joined Twitter. Later I got active on Instagram, and that's how I also got interested in digital art, and at some point became a writer.
Yeah, so you started, let's say, from in the traditional art world, right? That magazine, and what you were writing about early on was about the not digital art. Am I right? Is that how you started, or was it always digital computer art?
No, that was in 2006. So back then there wasn't. Instagram came up in 2010 October. So no, it was basically really what you deal with in university, right? A lot of Renaissance art, contemporary art, all of these things, what students write about in university. But the interesting part was that it was, yes, it has always been a print magazine from the beginning, but we had a website. Then it turned into an online magazine, a peer review magazine, and then into a blog. So it wasn't about digital art, but it's basically what we had sort of taught ourselves, how to communicate, how to do everything online as a group of students. And people, we were the first ones to do this, right? So that's also how, I met a lot of people. Because we were like really serious about it, and people found that really interesting. I guess some thought we were crazy. We put a lot of energy into this, and we also hosted like talks. We had invited art historians to come and give talks at the university. So we've done a lot of programming, and our institute was really happy about our activities. Yep.
Okay. So, and people thought you were crazy because it was a digital magazine, because it was a website. That was the reason that they were like, "What are you doing?" Or what was the reason?
Yeah, first of all, students thinking that it's necessary to publish writing by students, right?
Okay. Okay.
That's what we were publishing, right? But no, it were like really great texts, and some of the people we've published now write for the most important newspapers in Germany. So when you really want to, become a writer and publish your work, where do you go to as a student? So we wanted to be the place where students could go to and get the first experience in publishing their work. And we helped them with that. We learned a lot through that. I learned a lot through that, also how to lead a team. We were sometimes 10 to 15 people. So that was a lot of fun. And then later we turned it into a blog. And the funny thing was, then I was in Paris. I had a fellowship there. And, then there was Instagram and Twitter, and like people were always like, "Oh, she's tweeting again."
So you were tweeting a lot. So you were very active.
No, they were just not on Twitter, right? They didn't do blogs. They were not on Twitter, not on Instagram. People at academics are, in America, it's a bit more popular, but try to find an art historian on Twitter, even these days. And like back in the days, it was like, oh, she's doing this thing, That's what that was wild back then. Yeah.
Yeah, even now, right? It's not that common to have like art historians, art critic on Twitter openly. It's not very common, right? Like museums and institutions, writers, they have their own profiles, but conversations are not really happening, at least from what I've seen on Twitter or on Facebook when it comes to traditional art, right? But the digital world, the digital blockchain art is different, right? But that's quite interesting, Anika. And what will you say, like, your writing career, when you started to write, did that help you a lot? You think that was very helpful to kind of forge your path into what you're doing now, and become, like, be connected to many people, network? Did that, the writing, played a big part of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically running the student magazine, right? Because we were really active. We were doing these contests. We collaborated with like Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. That's one of the two biggest newspapers in Germany, for a contest, and the winner could do an internship at the culture department of the newspaper, and she's now one of their freelance writers. So we've done a lot of these things. We've done interviews with art critics, art historians. So back then I met a lot of people. And because I was, actively seeking conversations on Twitter already back then, because I always was interested in what's new, and how to, really try to see, I mean, when you study, right, you go to your university, in my case, Heidelberg, but how can you meet other people in other countries and other cities? So, and that's also what I like about the NFT space. I mean, we also met in Paris, right? You meet people on the internet, you are interested in the same topics, you can have conversations, and then you meet them all over the world. So that's great. And that's what we've done, like starting in 2006, and then continued with the blog. And then I started a project on Instagram. I hardly ever speak about anymore. It's a very long time ago, but it was titled This Ain't Our School. And it started, we were doing also a little contest assignment, because back then Instagram wasn't really about photography, and there were photographers on Instagram who were really interested in also, and people who got into photography through Instagram. So, and because I've been on Instagram so early, there was a big community, same as in the NFT space. Now for me, this is like history repeating itself on another channel with the blockchain. And then we've just hosted like these monthly assignments, and and in the end, we've worked with big museums, big institutions. We worked with some of the biggest photographers directly, Stephen Shaw, Joel Meyerowitz, who is doing the excellent NFT project, like releasing a work for, I think, the next 10 years with fellowship, like with the daily auctions. Joel Meyerowitz, Stephen Shaw, Martin Paar, with institutions like von and Bayerle. We work with Wolfgang Tillmans, and so on and so on. I don't know why I never mentioned it, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds like it was a big project. I mean, sounds like a lot of people, very interesting people, were involved. And Anika, when did you discover, or how was that transition to, I guess, first computer art, right? Art created with computer, and then blockchain art. So those two, how did that happen? When did you started to focus on computer art and then the blockchain?
I was in Paris, and I mean, when we've done the student magazine, sure, we also looked about digital art, computer art, then later post-internet art around 2000, when it did start 14, 15. So when you run a magazine or a blog, you always have to see what's new, what people are discussing, that your texts are not boring, and that you actually deliver something people are interested in reading. And then when was the exhibition Simon Denny had curated at Schinkel Pavillon? I think that was in 2018. The first in Berlin, the first exhibition curated by Simon Denny about the blockchain. I went to see this. Then Jonas Lund had started doing the Jonas Lund token. That's also how I got my first NFT, and that's also how I messed up my first wallet. Because I bought something physical, and then with it came the Jonas Lund token, right? And then he was like, "Yeah, you need to download this MetaMask thing." And I was like, I called him. I was like, "What is this? This is so annoying.
Yeah.
What do I need to do now? Why do I need to do this? I don't want any of this, right?"
Yeah.
And he was laughing. And I was like, "Okay, I do this." But I don't know. I'm pretty sure he told me about the whole seed phrase thing. But I was just like, whatever he wants me to do. And I lost the seed phrase. But there were no punks or anything in there, so I'm totally fine. But yeah, that's how I got in touch with blockchain, through artists, through being a writer. And at some point, NFTs came up. And then when you're a writer and curator, sure, I was super interested from the beginning. And because I wrote a column for like, I think 6 years for Germany's biggest art magazine, you know, I always checked what's happening, what people might be interested in. And yeah, then sure, when the hype started, I've written a bigger piece explaining NFTs. To me, that text felt so boring because I was just giving the basics, but I think that was my most read text. And it was one of their top 10 texts in the history of the media of the online magazine. That was really wild. It really went viral, that piece, me explaining NFTs.
Okay.
Yep.
And in what year was this? In what year was this again, Anika? 2018?
2020. No, after the hype, 2021. After the hype, no, that's when everyone wanted to know about NFTs, right? And then because already a lot of people read the column, so then I explained NFTs, and that text went through the roof because people were super excited to learn about NFTs. Yeah.
Right.
And then I stopped writing the column because yeah.
And what about because from there, when we look at your history, you have curated, some amazing, work from legends, right? Like Herbert Franke, Lee Mullican, Marina Abramovic. So from there, when you started to, get into blockchain art, how did you build those connections? Is this people or states that you already met before blockchain art? You had those connections, you had to work with them, or is it something that you started to do after you got involved in blockchain art? So how did you got connected to such amazing legends and work collaborated with them?
I guess when you're active on Twitter and when people know what you're doing. I mean, I wrote the column for Germany's biggest art magazine, so a lot of people had read this, and people already knew me from the student magazine and the blog. So, and then I'm active on Twitter and have a few followers on Instagram. So people just see what I'm doing and what I'm interested in, and then they just reach out. So the Marina Abramovic project, I was part of working with her on her first NFT project. We had released it on Tezos last summer. And people someone just reached out. He had reached out a few months or end of 2021 about another project, and that somehow didn't work out. And then he came back to me and was like, okay, this time it's Marina Abramovic. And I was like, okay, great. So let's do this. And that's how it started. And then we ended up like launching the project or speaking publicly about it at Art Basel last year. And Marina Abramovic couldn't be there, but there was a live conversation as part of the talk program, also organized by Tezos, because the release was on the Tezos blockchain. And then Herbert W Franke, I had met through a very good friend of mine, the museum director, Alfred Weidinger. He runs, I guess most people in the NFT space know the museum, the Francisco Carolinum in Linz. It was the first museum doing an exhibition about they back then called it Short History of NFTs, curated by Jesse Damiani. I helped in the background. I helped with the catalog and so on and so on. But and he one day called me and was like, yeah, as you know, I've been to Herbert W Franke and you need to come and visit him yourself. Just join me when I go there the next time. And I was like, yeah, sure, happy to come. And then he called me one day and was like, yeah, I'm going whatever day that was to Munich again. Would you like to come? And I was like, sure. And I booked the train immediately. It was a super cold day. I was on a train like for a very long time. And then I have met Herbert and his wife, Susanne. And the museum director went there with the curator of his solo show, Visionary, that was on view the museum in Linz last year, I think, starting in March, and a lot of people from the NFT space flew in. John Gerard was there because he lives in Vienna. Kevin Abosch came. Damiansky flew in from New York. Martina Menegon was there. So we were like a small group of, I think, 20 people. Uba Morgan, the NetArt icons were there. Office Impact, Nagel Draxler, like many people came. He was really happy. And that day I've been to Munich. I mean, I had tweeted and Instagrammed about me going there, and I was really excited. And I was surprised about how many messages I have gotten, like direct messages and responses. Either people had known his work, like were really familiar with the work and were like, wow, you're going to meet him. And I was like, yes. And others were like, wow, this is wild. And yeah, started looking into what he had done. And when I met him, I said to him, well, do you know that you're really a legend for this generation of artists? And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. I was like, people were going, they were like, wow. And he wasn't aware. And when I went back home, I tweeted on Instagram again, and same reaction. And a few days later, I was on the phone with his wife, Susanne. And I told her, and I was like, hey, guys, you need to come on Twitter. You need to see that yourself. And she was like, no, we're so busy with the museum show, and it's already a lot. And Herbert was 95 back then, right? So that was already a lot of work for them. And I was like, come on, nothing's going to happen. You just, set up the Twitter account, and then you can just read and see what's happening and how excited people are. Yeah, but then that went wrong, and he had 10,000 followers after like 48 hours, and I was like, uh-oh, this didn't go well. Yeah,
So
I
it
was
was
like,
over.
no. Yeah, I was like, I was like, because I had said to them, it's not going to be work, right? So I was like, I'm so sorry. I called them. I was like, I'm sorry. I mean, okay, I had pushed it a bit, right? I've messaged behind the scenes a few people. I was like, look, Herbert is on Twitter now, and they've wrote a beautiful first tweet, because they were also like really excited, about going on Twitter and seeing all of this. And then I was like, okay, guys, I'm so sorry. I didn't expect this to happen, because like even after like 5 days, he had 15,000 followers, and a lot of people had reached out directly behind the scenes for interview requests. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to help you now. If you want, I'm going to stay with you. And so since then, yeah, we've been speaking every day, Susanne and myself, basically, every day on the phone, discussing things. Yeah, and then, yeah, Herbert was part of the Tezos booth at Art Basel last year. Then he sadly passed away last July. And yeah, we now represent the estate exclusively, because Susanne and I speak every day anyway. And so, yeah. So that's beautiful that we now can continue working on his legacy together. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of books coming out over the next year, next month. We're working on a lot of things behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's such an exciting story if you think about it, right? So for those listening, Anika, that maybe aren't that familiar with Herbert's work, I mean, he was a pioneer, right, in computer art. And can you tell us a bit about, since you work with him and you have seen his history of works, and also what his impressions of the space and how it evolved over time? How will you define or share what Herbert did and why he was so important for the computer art movement?
I mean, the interesting thing is that he hadn't just been an artist. I would call him a universal genius. I mean, he was a writer, a curator. He is Germany's most famous science fiction writer. From time to time go back to his novels. So he wrote theoretical books and texts. Then he went into caves. That's how he started. He was a cave, I don't know, what's the word, speciologist or something like that. And so, yeah, through going, through being underground and having to take photos in the dark, he got interested in working with technologies. And through that, he got interested in art and technology. And he wrote his first book, Art and Construction, in 1957. That was pretty early. And I've reread the book, I've reread the book last year. And to me, what he wrote like 50 years ago, I read the book and I was like, wait, is he writing about the year 2022? This sounds so familiar. And so far, the book has only been published in German. It's very small. It's like, I don't know, around 80 pages or so. They were translated last year. We're waiting for the museum in Lund to, put it, start printing it, and to release it early next year. Kevin Abosch is currently writing the introduction to the book. But yeah, no, it's wild, because like basically not much has changed when it comes to art and technology. So 50 years ago, he had already tried to prove that artists can create art using technology. And that was basically what his whole life was about, right? Trying to, whenever there was a new technology, work with the new technology, thinking about ways, in which it's interesting, and also bringing in math, and his other interests. So he wanted to show that you can create beauty with math. Yeah, that's why he done the project Math Art. He worked on for 15 years. And then the funny thing was, I thought, because Susanne had always told me, well, Herbert worked on something until he thought, well, he has solved the problem, and then he went on to the next project, right? And then I thought, okay, he had worked on Math Art for like 15 years. 15 years is a pretty long time. So after that, you can be like, okay, I've solved it. But no, that was actually not the case. And he went there because when he started, there weren't like computers. So he didn't have a computer. So he needed to go to that institute, and he went there like every second Saturday. And sometimes his wife, Susanne, joined him. Like, imagine the devotion for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Going somewhere like every Saturday and preparing formulas, you can then run on that computer, and so on and so on. But no, in that institute, they just were like, okay, like, we don't need this machine anymore. Do you want to have it? And it was big. It was really big. So they were like, Herbert wanted to take it, but they couldn't. So that was basically the end of the Math Art project. Otherwise, he would have continued working on it. So yeah. And then as a science fiction writer, he was interested in the metaverse, in AI. Then he was very early in the metaverse. He's had a digital art gallery sort of in the metaverse in the early 2000s. Yeah, he was like early with everything. I think he was just like early with everything like 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So yeah, so yeah, and also reading his novels, we're going to publish Susanne, the Foundation, Herbert W Franke, which they had set up together, and what the money went to, they made with the Math Art drop. It was a quantum release. I had worked with them on that. So yeah, they set up the Foundation Herbert W Franke. Susanne is the managing director. And so yeah, whenever also we sell something with the gallery, or we do an exhibition, or now we have an NFT drop upcoming, we always know what this money will be used for. So either a publication, or like in this case with the upcoming drop, the foundation, with our help, is going to set up an NFT conference in Berlin next year on the history of generative art. So it's not, okay, his work gets sold and then this money goes just somewhere. No, Susanne and I discuss every time when we do something together, okay, like, what are the next projects she would like to realize? What are the things Herbert said, please do this, and what they had discussed. People in the NFT space call this roadmap, I guess. We don't call it roadmap. We don't call it roadmap. But no, so that's like very important for us. We always discuss this. What have his dreams been? What can we realize? What would be, at a certain moment in time important to speak about next? Yeah.
No, that's an amazing story. I was reading about Herbert. I wrote a couple of articles. I think when you organized a tribute, right, with many amazing artists. They all created either a piece or a collection, and it was to commemorate his life, basically, and what he meant to the computer art movement. And yeah, I was very impressed that he was actually, as you said, the best-selling German science fiction writer. That's quite a feat when you think about it. So he was basically
not best-selling. I mean, as he was Germany's most well-known science fiction writer.
Okay, and what were his thoughts on NFTs, Anika? What on the blockchain and all these things? I mean, he was such a bright person. He must have understood it. But I mean, the fact that all these realizations about the metaverse came to a reality, or it's in that direction. What were his thoughts? What was he thinking about? Like all these art selling online through objects, digital objects, and a lot of these artists and collectors, collecting it worldwide. What's he sharing about that?
So the interesting part was the art market was something that he was totally not interested in. When I had met him like last year, early spring, I was like, what is your wish? What could I help you with? What would make you happy? And then he was looking at me, just, smiling. And I was like, it's just something, that's an unrealized project. Anything, would you like to work with an auction house? Would you like to be represented by a gallery? Could it be Sotheby's, Christie's, Hayes Gallery? I've just mentioned names, whatever. And he was looking at me and was like, what? And he had never heard of Sotheby's and Christie's. He didn't know what I was speaking about. He was like, no, the art market, that's for other people. I'm not interested in that. But he was interested in always in new technologies. Like I've said, they were early in the metaverse. They had this gallery in the metaverse, and he had curated exhibitions in there. So him and his wife, they owned land. And that of course was super interesting for them, and they started looking into it in 2021 and started thinking about projects, and some have been in conversation. And then we somehow met, but there was the solo show, right? That was upcoming in the museum. So on this was the focus, and at the same time his 95th birthday was upcoming, and his wish was to realize to publish his digital work. And then it was math art, because all of us together thought this is the one project that sums up what he was interested in, and what also felt relatable for people in the NFT space, we thought. So but no, he's always been interested in new technologies, and I really hope we will be able to publish his novel soon, because then, it's wild. He wrote a book in 1972, and there's cyborgs in there, and people sort of, it's crazy. It's like he just and I always thought, like, even now this would be sort of visionary, what he had in mind. So he was early with basically everything he had done.
Yeah, that's, I have to read that book, and I wonder, is it, going to be published, I guess, physically, but do you see also potentially, a potential for it to be published online, like digitally, not like, in the NFT form, in the blockchain form? Have you discussed about that? Do you think that might be possible, or just like normal traditional publishing, like maybe Kindle and physical, books?
Yeah, Art and Construction will be published as a physical book by the museum. Instead of a catalog, it will be this important book from him. And these things are up to the museum. But there's going to be, and you've just mentioned the tribute. Susanne and his wife, Susanne, his wife, and myself have curated. Susanne, his wife, and myself have curated together. The money that had been raised through the tribute, through donations from artists, had been used because his archive is at ZKM. I guess people in the NFT space know the institution. They've also been early in everything around blockchain. They have one of the best museum collections, and so on and so on. So, but they didn't have the funds to digitize his archive. And he was really disappointed about that. Because they have all his writings, on paper and so on and so on, but no one had access to it. Someone who went to ZKM, right? But who does that? It's in the south of Germany. It costs money, and so on and so on. That was really important for him, that his writing gets digitized and made accessible online. So money from the tribute went to ZKM, and then Susanne and I didn't know what to expect. So we thought about, okay, Herbert could what he had done because he knew people who gave him access to technology. And then we thought, most people have a smartphone, have a laptop, so we all have access in most cases. And then we thought, okay, let's try to help in South Africa to give kids a chance to start working with technologies. So the money got donated to schools in Namibia. The pilot project is running, or has been running, and now more and more schools get involved. We're going to release a full update about what's happening and what could have been achieved. And there's many more things going to happen. So
That's
I think that was
amazing.
the most beautiful thing, that we could all together, the 80 artists that were part of the tribute, could help fulfill his wish, but then also, you know, continue doing what helped him give other people access to technology.
Yeah, that sounds perfect, right? Because he did what he did because he loved technology, and art was a way to explore it. But he, as you said, was not really interested in the market, in the art market. He had different. He was a professor, right? He was a writer, so it was he wasn't. I think from what I read, he never lived from his art, at least in his early life, right? So it makes sense to kind of apply these funds into ways that you know, help people to get into technology, right? Get into the things that he was, you know, interested in. So that's amazing, Anika, what you are doing with Susanne and all the things that you're mentioning. It's really exciting. And you know, we talked about a bit about your gallery, Expanded.Art. We already talked about how you got into the space, the art space, how you made the transition to the digital art space. And all the projects, some of the most important projects you have curated. And you know, I think it's important, and other, let's call them young curators, many people that are, you know, have that idea of curating shows, curating or working with artists, working with different institutions. I was wondering, what will be your advice? You know both fields. You know the traditional art world. You know the digital art space. You have worked with many, we can call them companies, institutions, artists. So for a young curator, somebody that wants to start, what would be your advice? How can they do that today?
I never wanted to be a curator. So I got into curating by accident. I always wanted to be a writer. And I'm
Right.
very grateful that this happened, and I enjoy it. But yeah, I think that basically counts for everyone, right? Whatever you want to do and believe in, just do it and keep doing it. I mean, like, I think it's important to take care that one can sustain themselves. So that's always important. But then, you know, we've run the student magazine, and then Instagram came up, and I was super interested. I was just super fascinated by it when I first opened Instagram. I thought, like, wow, this is going to be the future of communicating, you know, online, also of creating and sharing art. So I was super interested from the beginning, and I think that's important. And then when you just keep going and keep doing things, then just stuff comes to you. People come to you. They reach out to you. You're in conversation with people. That's also, I now teach, thanks to Übermorgen, at the Angewandten in Vienna, a class of students who study digital art. And I didn't know whether they were interested in NFTs or not. So I just went there. This is a democratic class. We now discuss what you would like to learn. And this class about NFTs, and I feared they might hate it, right? But they didn't. They were like super excited.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, we want to know what we can do as artists with NFTs. And I was like, great. Then we're just going to release NFTs together, right? At the end of this semester. And they were like super happy about it. And immediately in that first class, we started working on the NFT drop. And I also said to them, just do what you believe in, and keep informing yourself. So I think also for everyone who would like to become a curator, you know, just go out there. I mean, for me, I was always interested, right, in learning about new things and being online and speaking with other people and learning more. That's, I think, why I also got interested in the NFT space. It gets never boring. It never gets boring. You can learn something new every day, and that's what I enjoy. But I think if you have to force yourself going out there, being online, I guess then it might be really difficult to become a curator, or maybe even a writer, because you just have to be out there and have to inform yourself, and you have to spend a lot of time online. But yes, I would just say, just go out there, go to galleries, go to museums, meet people. You meet people online,
Yeah.
you start
Yeah.
conversations, and then also just do things. That's also always what I say to students, right? Just start doing your own things. Like we've done no one at university told us, now you guys do an online magazine. Now you guys do a blog. Now you do this. Now you do that. Now you do this competition. We were just like, we wanted to do it because we were curious and wanted to change things. And yeah, just do that and start curating online exhibitions, for example, or start curating exhibitions in your neighborhood. I don't know if you know the media artist Aram Bartol. And I forgot when that was, I think early 2010, he started setting up exhibitions in internet cafes all over the world. And then other people as well started like curating, because in internet cafes, there's computers, right? And you can just go in there and rent the computers. So, and they were called speed shows. So we've done that in Berlin together. Aram and I had curated a speed show together. When was that? Maybe 2019. Yeah, I think 2019. That's also when I met Thomas Webb, who is now the CEO of Web.game. So yeah, just do things and then other people come and you meet them. Yeah, just start curating wherever, internet cafe. It was really funny because, it was wild. It took us so long to actually find an internet cafe, and I think it was really 2019 because there's hardly any internet cafes left, and at least not in Berlin. So Aram had to really drive around in Berlin to find an internet cafe, and I think we found one with 10 computers.
Wow, but is that people use it? Is it operational, or is more like a museum or some sort? It's used, so people use it. Okay.
Yeah, and when we were there was actually someone wanting to use one of the computers, right? But they were taken by us.
It's a show.
No, yeah, just be creative, do things, start curating, and then things very likely come your way.
And Anika, when you curate, and you're also part of boards, right? Of curatorial boards. So when you curate with a group, right? So it's a group that curates something. So what are you usually looking for? There are many these days digital applications, right? Open calls or artists that have to submit their works to different, could be marketplaces, to galleries. So when you are involved in those kind of projects, what are you usually looking for? What can artists learn? What are curators looking for? Or you think there is no answer for that?
I mean, I'm on the advisory board, for example, for House of Electronic Arts in Basel, but then there's an advisory board meeting, I think twice a year. So we come together, the institutions presents what they are working on, and then they ask the advisory board for advice. That's actually really what it means being on the advisory board, or, we all of us say if you need something, just come and ask. And House of Electronic Arts has started releasing NFT projects on FX Hash, and the first drop was Leander Herzog, for example, which was a beautiful project. So these, or then there's the Art Blocks Curation Board, for example, and that's a democratic process basically, because artists either get invited or get some other way in touch with the Art Blocks team, and then the Art Blocks team works with the artists on their projects, and then once a week they are sent to the curation board. Then everyone on the board, if they have time, look at the projects that were submitted this week, and then there's feedback, and then basically, depending on the feedback, the project is either curated or presents. But it's not that people come together and discuss projects in this way. But otherwise, open calls. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Nicole from Vertical Crypto Art last year, and yes, we've done an open call for an exhibition we've done together in Berlin. And yeah, then we really went through all the applications. But then when, for example, curating a group show, it's not so much selecting single artists or thinking this is a brilliant project. Then it's more okay, what's the topic of the exhibition? And then you really try to think what works, what's the storyline, what's the topic, do we want people to learn something, and so on and so on. And then you just also see what works well together. We have a space, you have the topic of context, you have the topic of storyline. There's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. So yeah, I guess if someone applies for something, it's always important to check what the topic is, and then just write a good text and submit the great piece.
Yeah,
in the end, you're going to be part of I think that's a pretty important part. I mean, I guess most artists wouldn't agree, but when that's also how I got into curating, right? A museum director, Alfred Weidinger, who now runs the museum in Linz, had invited me to curate an exhibition, and I thought, okay, I never wanted to be a curator, but I've written in my column about this topic, which was, to me back then, and internationally highly relevant, because young artists like Avida Byström, Petra Collins, Molly Soda, who's also Nicole Rogero, some of the artists that are now also known in the NFT space, were active on social media, Mia Schrager, and they actually had shown themselves in a way. They wanted to see themselves, and they shared their work. And there was a lot of criticism around it. This is not feminism. This is not this. This is not that. They shouldn't do this. They should do that. This is where it was like horrible. It was really horrible. And I kept writing about it. And then when the museum director approached me, I was like, yeah, would you like to do a show? And I was like, yeah, I have, like, this topic is important. I would like to present this in a museum show. And I didn't have much time, so I invited someone to curate it with me. And yeah, I reached out to all the artists I had prior written about. And because I didn't want to be a curator, I was like, okay, I come from text. I have this like whole storyline and narrative in mind. These are the artworks. I know how to put them into a space, because that's also what I learned when I studied art history. But I really came from the text. And that's what I do with every project I work on. I always come from the text. Like everything, every single exhibition I work on, that's my approach. And so far it worked, because yes, people look at art, but then they also start reading. And so and I think that just has to be a storyline. Also, when I'm here at the gallery at Expanded.Art, right? And then people come in, and then you have to start speaking with them about the exhibition. And right now we're showing Lee Mullican. You see some of his artworks behind me. And we're showing the prints, his lithographs, that are, because people ask when MoMA. These are editions from the 1960s, 1970s. They're all in the collection of MoMA. And then we're showing his digital work he had started working on in the 80s. And it's because then you can tell people where he comes from, that he comes from a very traditional medium, and that then in the 80s he was invited to start working with computers at UCLA, and he was the only one who was interested in doing that. And it's interesting when people come in and then they ask, from when is that? And I'm like, yeah, that's from the 1980s, that's from the 1960s. And they're like, wait, what? So they look at it, and they would have never thought it's something like this had been done in the 1980s. So, it's always important. And then his son, Mullican, came here and was showing a painting, physical painting, that was influenced by his early computer art, right next, in dialogue with his digital work. And he said he was so happy to finally see this next to each other, because you can really see how these things influence each other. And then I can also, show it to people. They're like, oh yeah, I see it. So I think that's just important, thinking about how to speak about an exhibition, what you would like people to understand. But then also as an artist, when thinking about a career, I think, or an exhibition, basically about everything, I think it's also very helpful if you don't think just in project, I'm invited to this. No, connect the dots. I guess that's really important. Like, that's also what Herbert W Franke has done, for example, right? What are you interested in? What would you like to find out? What could be the logical next step? What helps people understand what you're interested in? What sets you apart from other people, right? Because doing pretty pictures, and I don't in no way mean it in any negative way, a lot of people can do, right? But what is that you
The
as an
message.
artist are interested in? What would you like to contribute to the history of digital art, maybe even to the history of art, right? What is your contribution? What are you interested in? No one else might be interested in. And then just continue following that track.
Right. Yeah, it's like building your artist vision, and I think it's what you mentioned, that you start from the writing, and it's the best way possible to put some context into what's happening, and I think that's so important. And for artists as well, I think it's a good way, like a good approach could be to explain their art in a better way. Some say they want their art to be like self-explanatory, right? That's also a valid point, but I guess as a curator, it's really important to contextualize what is happening, right? What's the story behind it, the history. So yeah, that's very interesting. I think many young curators will appreciate your advice there, Anika. And is
Just
that
keep
how
going.
you? How is your approach on the Expanded.Art, which, by the way, congrats. I think you have, in a short amount of time, it has grown a lot. You have published some amazing projects. The platform, I think it was with Valerie from Tezos, we were chatting about the shopping cart that you have. So it's a very intuitive a way to buy art, which has kind of a flow that people are used to in real life, right? Like when you buy on Amazon, so you get an email confirmation, which is not really common on the NFT world, but it's great for people that are new to the space, right? It's more user friendly. So congrats on Expanded.Art. And can you tell us a bit about the vision? What because it's a very particular, there is a clear focus, right, on what you're doing there. Can you tell us a bit about that? What's your vision? What kind of art you want to showcase? You're showcasing.
I mean, we Expanded.Art presents yesterday's pioneers and today's avant-garde. So this basically really is what it says. So we really like work with pioneers like Herbert W Franke, Lee Mullican, Hans Dehlinger, Heinrich Heidersberger, like with a lot of the people who have been doing art since decades. And then I always look out for young talents such as Margaret Murphy. I met her, that was during the pandemic at her university, because I was invited to give a talk about online exhibition, like via Zoom at her university in Hartford. And we stayed in touch. And at some point, I saw her on Twitter and getting interested in NFTs and how, she can, and then she got interested in AI. So, yeah, I mean, also being an artist maybe is not just about making art, but about, being persistent and showing that you're like really bring a passion, and that sort of like nothing can stop you. And that's what we see with Lee Mullican. His son was here, and he was like, his dad was constantly drawing. What you see behind me, he said he was drawing in many cases in front of the TV. So yeah, so that's what is important for Expanded.Art to present yesterday's pioneers and today's avant-garde. We have 2 physical gallery locations in Berlin. We do, and it's really funny. So we do one, or by now, because we have 2 galleries, 2 exhibitions per month, like one per space, and then shorter sort of like presentations maybe in the showroom on the occasion of drops. And yeah, so for the NFT space, an exhibition for 3 months, 3 weeks, like even for the artists, they're like, after a week, they're like, wait, what? My exhibition is still on. Yeah, we have discussed your exhibition is on for 3 weeks. Oh yeah, right. It's just been a week. So they're not used to, like in the NFT space, most things are like one night, a weekend, 3 days. If it's 6 days, it's already long. But we reach a lot of people in the traditional art world. They're like, you're doing a lot. And I was like, oh, I have the feeling that for the NFT space, we're sort of like really slow and not doing a lot, because it's like 3 weeks and not like 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week.
Yeah.
So yeah, because they do exhibitions for like 6 weeks. But yeah, that's also very important, like the physical presence. Because I think it's really important that people who might not know about the history of digital art and NFTs don't think, well, that's just, JPEGs you can put on screens.
Yeah.
No, the history of digital art started like in the 50s when artists such as Herbert W Franke and others started using technology to create art. And I think it's really important. And, so yeah, that's the mission: present yesterday's pioneers and today's avant-garde.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what's the percentage, the ratio of people that visit your gallery that aren't familiar with the digital, let's say the blockchain space and NFT, and the ratio that are? Is it like half and half, or do you get much more traffic from people that understand the NFT space? What's the ratio like?
I mean, people in the NFT space quickly learned about Expanded.Art, so whenever someone is in town, they come by. So, and that's also why I'm here every day, right? So if you're in town, just come by. If there's not just right now Art Basel or NFT Art de Zurich or any other big NFT event, I'm at the gallery like 100% for sure. If I'm not here, I'm like close and my team will call me when someone comes and I'm here. So please, when you're here, say who you are if you would like to meet me. And I'm in most cases 5 minutes away if I'm not at the gallery. So yeah, and because we're on one of the main shopping streets in Berlin, a lot of people come by, and people who just stumble in, they think NFTs are dead. They might have heard about NFTs and then they're like, yeah, wait, but I thought that's a hype. Or wait, what are NFTs? And so, for example, we've done an exhibition with Hans Dehlinger. He also one day just stood in front of me and knew his name, and he came by with his daughter, and they're wonderful and lovely people. And he like someone like him, all of these pioneers, they just kept going. And now he's like super interested in everything blockchain, and has just been on holidays, and I know he'd been working on his first NFT release. So when we had shown his plotter drawings, I made sure we're not showing a plotter, because I didn't want people to know from the outside when they walk by, this has been done with technology. So for people who didn't know anything about plotter drawings, they just came in, and a lot of people came in. It was summer. We had the door open. It looked very minimalist. It was very beautiful. Hans and his daughter were here like every day. And one day Hans stood in front of me just smiling and said, I didn't know so many people would be interested in plotter drawings one day. And I was like, no, they're not interested in plotter drawings. They're interested in art,
Right.
So they came in, they saw art, and then they were like, well, how did either they started speaking with him if he was here, how did you do it? Or how was this made? And then we started speaking about plotter drawings, and most people didn't know about plotters or code as a medium and all of these things. So yeah, like if you ask me about people who just walk by, not, there's not a lot of knowledge, but in general, a lot of people from the NFT space can come by. Christiane Paul curated the Whitney Museum. She came by when we had the exhibition, The Thinking Machine, on view, like when we presented like 40 pioneers, also someone like Ana Livia Cordero. And we're very grateful that Laurent Dom has collected an iconic piece from Ana Livia Cordero. So Christiane Paul was here, Jordan Kenter from Art Blocks was here. Casey Rias had visited us a couple of weeks ago. So basically everyone who's in Berlin just comes by. So I can't really give a ratio. That also depends on who's in town. But yeah, no, it's also important for me to learn, because then people come in and they're interested in, they see about it, they hear about it, and then they're like, okay, great. How can I learn more? Where can I inform myself? And then I figured, okay, wait, the answer basically is you have to go on Twitter. I mean, subscribe to our newsletter, read our online magazine. And then I was like, if you really want to dive deep and start collecting and so on, like really inform yourself, I was like, the only way is Twitter. And that's also how I had the idea to do the Voices of Web3 project, I invited artists, curators, collectors to give a statement of like less than 1 minute about the year 2023 in Web3, because I wanted to have a place on our platform, because we also have an online magazine. I'm doing a lot of interviews with artists we work with. because I wanted to have a place I can send them to. I think right now there's 25 people on it. The McCoys are upcoming with their voice jam next week. And Spalter is on there, Susanne Päch, Herbert W Franke's wife, and a lot more people. And then I can just say, and Sasha, Stiles, María Caballero, for example, Christian Buck, like really a lot of people. And I made sure it's like very diverse group of people. So, and now I can send them, well, you can go to our website, you just go to the section Voices of Web3 and start reading. You learn about, some of them, some of the important artists, like basically thought leaders in digital art and culture. And that's the starting point, right? And then from there, they have a few people they can start with, and then they can read interviews on our magazine and then just, continue from there. Because also these artists in the interviews mention a lot of other projects, artists they're inspired by, galleries they work with, shows they've been part of. I guess it's just like a very good source for people to get started.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? It's a way to learn from the people actually doing something and not from some sort of platform or something else. So yeah, and you're right. The best way is to go on Twitter, right, and follow specific accounts that are sharing what's happening. That's where we are at this moment.
I always also send them to right-click save, to Outland. I tell them if you want to read and learn more, there's 2 fantastic online magazines, right-click save, Outland. Then I always send them to Feral File, and I tell them if you want to see great digital art exhibitions online, visit Feral File. And you've just mentioned that we sort of have a cart and that this is not common. That has to do with regulations in Germany. We can't just do Connect Wallet. That would be totally impossible. So we have to know where people are based for tax reasons. So anyone being angry, I'm very sorry. We would be in serious trouble, like really serious trouble if we wouldn't do this. So yeah, but then it's also people can pay with credit card. Right. And the most important part is, and I'm very grateful that one can now pay, actually since a longer time, pay with credit card on Object and on FX Hash. It's so much easier for people who don't have a wallet to actually start collecting. And when they start collecting on Expanded.Art, they don't even need a wallet. They can claim their NFT to their dashboard, and then it's sitting there, and wherever they're ready to get a wallet, they can transfer it to the wallet. Because when I mentioned, then people are always like, when they're at the gallery, okay, this is a digital artwork, and how do I collect it? And then I'm like, you know, NFTs, and you need a wallet, and then they're nearly running out of the gallery. If they hear wallet crypto, and they're like, don't worry, you don't need a wallet, you can pay with credit card. And the most important part for me was finding out that actually people in the NFT space also really prefer to pay with credit card.
Oh, really?
Like
so
the minority,
even people in the space, they prefer to pay with credit card.
If you give them the choice, yes. Even the biggest collectors. If you give them the choice, yes.
That's good to know. But yeah, I agree. Also, I see in part with my newsletter, like premium subscribers, they are all like 85, 90% pay with card. And sometimes I have the option to pay with crypto, but then it's been like for 2 years that most of them prefer to pay with card. And I think it's also a way to organize, better for taxes and different reasons, right? It's especially in what we call NFT art, right? Makes probably more sense. Organizing expenses in with crypto wallets is very complicated as well. So yeah, but that's good to know, Anika. And we have been talking for over an hour. It's been very, very exciting. I wanted to touch briefly on a topic that you are very, very active and know a lot about, which is, recently I wrote an article about the kind of the effect of the identity, or if an artist uses a full name or a short name. And what was interesting to me while doing that research is that in generative art, if you look at the top selling artists, 85% are male and 15% are female, at least from their names, right? That's what we can see. And I was wondering if you I mean, you have been around for a while in the art world, in the digital art space, and why is there such a big gap? Is it so? Is it because there are more male artists, or is it because there is some sort of problem where male are getting more exposure and are selling more? Have you? Because I think you have thought about these, right? What are your thoughts there, Anika?
I mean, that's a tricky question, and yeah, thank you for all the work you do. It's great. I love everything. I love to read everything from you you put out there, because it's always interesting and always well researched. So yeah, and then what you've just mentioned, you've published a longer thread where you said, well, and it was so interesting what you found out, but then you looked at, is someone going with their real name or is being like called Snowfro or something? And female and non-binary artists, what they've seen first was, no, this is not the question here. The topic is the gender, right? And I guess a few people had said, well, the real topic is, the topic of gender and the gap here. And I don't know where that comes from, like, really. I mean, yeah, when it comes to generative art, I think it's maybe very easy. Boys play with, video games, and they start through that somehow coding. Also, many of the artists I've worked with over the past years, they always were like, yeah, I've been playing computer games, and through that I've started coding, or I've wanted to, I don't know, just build artist Manuel Rosner, who's a pioneer in building virtual worlds, for example, and also virtual exhibition spaces. He just, from computer games, he straight went there. So I think that's just also like a bit of, comes from video games, and but I guess that will change, like, very likely over the next few years. That more and more young women get learn coding. I really hope that's the case. But other than that, I mean, that's why Operator and I have done the project Unsigned, which happened because there had been an article published in The Guardian, and it basically said, if a male artist signs an artwork, the price go up. If a female artist signs an artwork, the price goes down. And all of these artworks by Lee Mullican, by the way, are signed. Isn't a guarantee for a very high price, by the way. But yeah, so, and then Operator and I, we've been to a dinner hosted by Tezos, organized by Ryan from NFT Collective. And there was a print by Quibibi, and there were like people like Matt Dryhurst and Holly Herndon, Diane Drew-Bay, a lot more people from the Berlin community. And there was this print from Quibibi, and they wanted everyone to sign it and then auction it off. And I said to Operator, well, we shouldn't sign it, because then the price goes down, right? That what the study had just found out. I was like, no, I was just making a joke, right? But I was like, we can't sign this. All the female and non-binary artists in the room, if we sign this, the price will go down. Quibibi will be. It was just a stupid joke. And then we looked at each other and were like, wait, maybe we should try to do something about it, right? And bring attention to this topic, because it was in the Guardian and it had made a bit the rounds in the NFT space, but not that much. And we had, I think everyone has seen it also when collectors speak about the grails, right? Yeah. In most cases, it's 10 male artists. In most cases, it's really like the gold standard art blogs, and then it's always the same 10 male artists, the same projects. I don't know why that is, but we thought we need to bring attention to this topic. And then I guess people at the dinner party thought we were crazy, because we started working on this project immediately. And when we left the restaurant, Dija called the lawyer, Operator's lawyer, and we're like, hey, we're going to release 100 signatures on the blockchain. Is there anything we need to keep in mind? And it was like 1 at night, and we wanted to release the project the next day because we already had started promoting it. Yeah, we were just
Wow.
sitting there planning the whole drop that evening, and we started tweeting. We had planned the first tweet. We needed a title. We needed the first line about the whole thing. Then friends saw it and were like on Twitter, because people see it immediately. And they're like, "What are you working on?" And we're like, "We can't say it, but would you like to give us a blurb?" Right? That's what usually is on the back of a book. And then people just started sending us things, right? Like Kevin Abosch said, "I'm flabbergasted," and yeah, we just got like all these comments we could tweet, and people were excited, and they didn't really know what was coming. Like no one knew what was coming. Also, the people they could, I think they heard a bit what we're working on, but yeah, everyone was just excited. And then not even 24 hours later, we had launched the first 4 signatures, and then over 3 months, we had invited 100 female and non-binary artists to contribute to the project. And no, we didn't get rich with the project. That's funny enough. What the critique was, everyone can see online how much money Operator and I got. I think I got like, each artist got 90% of the sales of their NFT. We sold for 200 tests, 90%, and then 10% went to Operator and myself. And I think I got either 2 or 4%. I can't even remember. It won like 800. I didn't even make 800 tests with the project. So we just did it because it was important. And that's also what I can say to every curator. Yes, curation has to be paid. It really has to, if you work for other projects, if you work for other people, if you get invited to do something, make sure you get paid, like 100%. If you don't get paid, don't do it. You're going to make things worse. And because I can do it, I now always speak up. If something is not paid, like, please pay. It's not just support the artist. It's not just support the artist. It's really wonderful, and I'm grateful, because it was also hard for me as a curator. And I mean, curators don't get paid well. Don't worry at all. It's like, wow. It's not something people can really live from, right? But for me, it was also tough seeing, digital artists struggling. So for me, it's wonderful to see, that artists can really live from the art they create. That's the best thing that could happen. It really is, but there's more people in this space. There's writers, there's curators, there's people working on these projects. Just everyone needs to be paid. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. First, a project that's a great initiative, and what you said, that there are more people working on projects, and I like the way of distributing, like how the technology does it, like with the smart contracts, and now more platforms are incorporating, like curators fee and these sort of ideas. I think that's great for the space, and I hope we see more of that. But Anika, it's been, as I said, over an hour. I just have one final question, which I ask all the guests, and it's who are 3 rising artists for Anika Meier? So 3 artists that you are really excited about in the digital art space. It's a tough question.
Have you given me this question in advance? No, you didn't. That's a very tough one. 3, it has to be emerging, right? Or can it be like some pioneer people might not be familiar with?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's very open, to be honest. It's 3 artists that inspire you, that you want to mention, that people should look at, that if they don't know them, that you think their art is interesting. It's very flexible, to be honest.
Yeah, first off, I mean, I've already mentioned Margaret Murphy, but I would really like to mention Margaret Murphy. Yeah, she's an emerging artist. She comes from photography. She is one of the, I've just mentioned, Net Feminist, this group of female artists releasing work on Instagram. She was part of that group. And that's not what Maya Mann now is doing. She's also a great artist, but super well known in the NFT space. Yes, Margaret is also widely known in the NFT space, but I think it's important for me to mention to really keep an eye on her. And second, I think Heinrich Heidersberger is a pioneer. A lot of people might not be familiar with. But he also worked on his rhythmograms for like 12 years. And I always find that fascinating. If people don't lose interest, especially in a time when there's drop, right? An artist works on this, that. And I find it like really same as with Herbert W Franke, working on something for like 15 years, working on something for like 12 years, building a machine, and then working with that machine and creating work for like 12 years in the middle of the night because the machine, it needed to be dark, and then a third artist. So it's very tricky. Because I always think in the NFT space, everyone already knows everyone because we're constantly on Twitter, right? So, yeah, Heinrich Heidersberger, Margaret Murphy. I think I would like to mention actually María Caballero, though she's not emerging at all, but I'm really fascinated by her previous projects. Yes, it's a coincidence that 3 projects are released at the same time, but I really love what the Verse is doing, Sasha, Stiles, María Caballero. And I think, the way, especially because you've just asked me also about, female artists and the gap between male and female artists. And I think Kalin Iwamoto, Sasha Stiles, and María Caballero, the 3 founders of the Verse, sort of get the Verse, a gallery for poetry. They do a fantastic job of working together, supporting other artists, supporting other female artists, releasing work themselves. I don't know how they do it, how they work on their project.
They are always traveling. They are always traveling to exhibition shows, and they are exhibiting their work, but also their diverse other artists. So yeah, it's fantastic. What they do is very impressive.
Yeah, look at that, and I'm very impressed. We're working on something with them upcoming next year. But yeah, poetry, that's also my background, studying German literature. So yeah, Margaret Murphy, Hans Dehlinger, and then everyone knows the Verse and María Caballero, but I think there's even more interesting things to come, and that's a field because generative art people are very familiar with, but I think it's very important to keep an eye out for what's interesting when it comes to artists working with AI. And then also artists like, working with something like poetry and finding like really new ways and making things accessible. Yeah.
Right. That was awesome, Anika. Thanks for those names, and thanks for sharing the time. We learned a lot. I learned a lot from your journey, and yeah, hope we can chat again at some point in the future. Thanks so much, Anika.
Hope to see you next week in Paris. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.